Welcome everyone to my Throne of Eldraine limited set review. Today we're going to be looking at all of the green cards. Last time we did the red cards, and after this we're going to try to do the multicolored and artifact and land cards, unless I decide to split that up. So we'll see how many there are. But yeah, so again I'm going to be using the limited resources ranking system, which puts A at the grade A is the best cards in the set, and F is the worst, like and or unplayable cards in the set. Yeah, so let's see, let's get started. So the first card we have is Beanstalk Giant. It's 6 and a green for a star creature giant at uncommon. It has an adventure. The creature half says Beanstalk Giant's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. And the adventure part is Fertile Footsteps for 2 and a green, sorcery adventure. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this is actually a huge beater that ramps into itself, really. This goes into a lot of green decks because it gives you both the ramp and the big fatty, which is awesome. So I don't think this is really for constructed, but for limited, they just can't kill this unless they have like good black removal. So it's just going to sit on the battlefield and swing in for a lot of damage. It just basically has to be chump blocked. You want this really in every green deck, so I would probably give this a B- because it's just pretty good in every green limited deck, and the basic land even comes into the battlefield untapped, which is awesome. So maybe if you have like that Lucky Clover card that copies adventures, you can really go off with this, because that's a 2-drop and then this is a 3-drop, so that can work. But yeah, I'd say B- for Beanstalk Giants, just pretty solid. Next up we have Curious Pair. It's 1 and a green for an adventure creature. It's a creature human peasant at common. It's a 1/3. And the adventure half is Treats to Share for a green. It's a sorcery, create a food token. So food is a pretty prevalent theme in green. And food is really good in limited. Like, it just helps you stay alive for so long, helps you win races. Food is really good. This one makes 1 food token and then as a 1/3, which is not great, but if you're really hard up for some food, like you have good food payoffs or whatever, this can, do some work. 2 mana for a 1/3 is okay. I'd really want like 2 power, but we've seen 2 mana 1/3s before with upside, and this is exactly that. So if you're in the food deck, I would play this. It's kind of just like a C-. You look to cut it, but if you really want food, you put it in your deck. So C- for Curious Pair. Next up, we got Edgewall Innkeeper for a green. He's a creature human peasant at uncommon. It's a 1/1. It says whenever you cast a creature spell that has an adventure, draw a card. So this is like the best payoff there is for the adventure, like the adventure mechanic deck, which is primarily in green-white, but every color has adventures. So this could go in even like a green-red deck or something. If you're not doing a lot of adventures, this is kind of a bad card, but this can do a lot of work and draw you a lot of cards. Note that you have to be casting the creature half of the adventure, not the adventure side, or not the instant or sorcery side. So to get the payoff of this, you have to just play the creature half, which is fine usually, but you usually want to get the adventure half off. But this just pays you off for having a bunch of adventure cards in your deck, which is solid. Some people are off on this because it's a 1 mana 1/1, but this one comes with serious value, and you do want it in the adventure deck. Without it, you just kind of have a bunch of adventure stuff. So you do want it in the adventure deck, so I'm giving this a B-. I don't know if I'd first pick it unless I already knew I was in the adventure deck, but you could first pick it and then go hard into it. So there is that. As far as constructed, you could make an adventure deck, and this would definitely go in it as the 1-drop. So look to that for this. All right, so it's a B- for Edgewall Innkeeper. Next up, we got Feasting Troll King. It's 2 and 4 green for a creature troll noble at rare. It's a 7/6. Vigilance Trample. When Feasting Troll King enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, create 3 food tokens. And then sacrifice 3 foods. Return Feasting Troll King from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only during your turn. So this is definitely one of those huge food payoffs. This is really solid. And then in constructed, like, this is just basically Hogak. Like, you can always get it back from the graveyard if it dies. So they'll have to exile this or just keep getting beat in the face with a Vigilance Trample guy. This has Trample. It's a 6 mana 7/6. So good. They have to deal with it. Plus it makes 3 food tokens, and if you don't see this dying, you could just sack those food tokens for life, or whatever other food token stuff you have. But you probably want to keep your food in case this does die. Something has to be said about the 4 green in its cost. You need to be heavy green, unless you can somehow reanimate this in a black deck with a bunch of food tokens. I don't see that happening too often in limited, but I have like gotten like 5-6 food tokens before, so it's not impossible. But yeah, this will just keep coming back. It comes back by itself at least once, so it's a 7/6 recurable threat. Just really good. I try to fit it in any green deck, really. Even if I'm not heavy green, I still try to make it work, just to live the dream to have the 4 green mana. I mean, you'll probably get there eventually if the game goes long enough. But I mean, that is playing with fire, so you might just have a dead card in your hand. Still 6 mana for a 7/6 Vigilance Trample. That's really good. So this is just a slam dunk A, and I would love to first pick this. And try to be heavy green. So A for Feasting Troll King. Next up we have Fell the Pheasant. For 1 and a green is an instant at common. Fell the Pheasant deals 5 damage to target creature with flying. Create a food token. So this one, unfortunately, you always need a target. You can't just pay 2 mana to get a food token. But this kills a lot of stuff in the air, and that's pretty solid. You might want to main deck this if you have like no flying hate in your deck. I could see main decking this, especially if you're in the food deck. They'll usually have like a flyer or 2 here and there that you can kill at least once a game. So yeah, this is just pretty solid. Maybe I'd probably give it a sideboard grade. Like, this is like a C out of your sideboard. And if you main deck it, it's probably like a C-. It might be dead in your hand a lot, but you'll be glad to have it if they do have an annoying flyer. So, and if you're in the food deck, you even get points for that. So, C- for Fell the Pheasant. Next up we have Fierce Witchstalker. 2 and 2 green for a creature wolf at common. It's a 4/4. Has Trample, and when Fierce Witchstalker enters the battlefield, create a food token. This is just a really above rate card. 4 mana for a 4/4. It's already solid, plus it has Trample, plus it makes a food token. So it goes into any green deck, especially in the green food decks. But you'll just take the free food no matter what, like in whatever deck you are. So this is just a solid card. It's like, I don't know if I'd first pick this, but it is solid once you're in green, or this could pull you towards green just because it's so efficient. And it's a common. This card is nuts. It's like for a common, I think. So this one is like a B-. I'd be happy to have this in multiple decks. Don't know if I'd first pick it, but it is just solid, and yeah, it goes in the food deck, and I don't know what else to say about it. Nowhere near constructed, but it's just pretty good. So yeah, B- for Fierce Witchstalker. Next up we have Flaxen Intruder. It's for a green creature, human berserker at uncommon. It's an adventure creature. The creature half is whenever Flaxen Intruder deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. When you do, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And then the adventure half is Welcome Home, 5 green for a sorcery adventure. Create 3 2/2 green bear creature tokens. So this is a really awkward card because the creature is 1 mana and the adventure is 7 mana. So you'll either be saving this to make 3 2/2 bear tokens, or playing this as a 1/2 with like marginal upside. Past turn like 2, this will never get through. So I don't know how much artifact destruction you're going to be, artifact or enchantment destruction you're going to be playing this for. This is just an awkward card. Plus 7 mana for 3 2/2s is not very exciting. And they're bears, they're not knights or anything like with a good creature type or anything. I guess they're non-human for that non-human deck. But this is just, it's so awkward. You're never going to get through with the 1/2 to destroy a thing. So this one I think is just like a D+. Like, if you really need adventures, you can put it in your deck, but otherwise, like, I don't want this in my deck. So I'd say a D+ for Flaxen Intruder. Next up, we got Garenbrig Carver. It's for 3 and a green. It's a creature, human warrior, common. It's an adventure creature. It's a 3/2 with vanilla on the creature half, and the adventure half is Shield's Might, 1 and a green, instant adventure. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So this again goes pretty much only in the adventure deck. I wouldn't really want it in any other deck because, like, 4 mana for a 3/2 is awful, and with no abilities, it's just bad. And then +2/+2 for 2 mana, I guess is playable, so it's kind of 2 mediocre cards stapled together, which I guess you could play. It's kind of like a C-, maybe D+, so if you really need adventures, here you go, but if otherwise, I would not put this in your deck. So I think D+ for Garenbrig Carver, just not an exciting card. Next up, we have Garenbrig Paladin, 4 and a green for a creature giant knight at common. It's a 4/4, has adamant. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast this spell, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. And Garenbrig Paladin can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So this is the last in the cycle of knights that are named after their castles. So this is the Garenbrig Paladin, which is the green one, obviously. 5 mana for a 4/4 is not very exciting, but 5 mana for a 5/5 is pretty good. I guess I wouldn't be too sad to have it as a 4/4. Plus, it has like a pretty good evasive ability, can't be chump blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, which is, you know, that's upside, and sometimes you can just get through with this because all they have is 2 power or less stuff. So that's not bad. Obviously, only for limited, not constructed, but you'd probably be pretty happy to have this in your green decks. Hopefully, you're more heavy green because you need 3 green mana, but I'd play it as a 5 mana 4/4. That I wouldn't be too upset with that. So this is just kind of like a C, and I'd be happy to have 1 or 2 of these in my deck. Next up, we have Garenbrig Squire for 1 and a green. Is a creature human soldier at common. It's a 2/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell that has an adventure, Garenbrig Squire gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So this is another adventure payoff, but it's not a very good one. Like, you can have a 2 mana 3/3 if you cast a creature with adventure, which, yay. How often are you going to be casting creatures with adventure? Like, you need a lot of adventures in your deck, and this is just not a very good payoff. So this is kind of just like a C. You might want 1 to have a 2-drop, but I'm not very excited about it, so I give it a C. Next up, we have Giant Opportunity, 2 and a green for a sorcery at uncommon. You may sacrifice 2 foods. If you do, create a 7/7 green giant creature token. Otherwise, create 3 food tokens. So this is a pretty good food payoff. If you are able to just incidentally make foods, this is just going to really pay you off. And then this is a really good card in multiples. Unfortunately, it's an uncommon, so you might not get that opportunity. But if you have multiples of these, first you make 3 foods, and then you get a 7/7. That's solid. Maybe there's ways of getting this back from the graveyard with I think it's called Once in Future. You can do that. So just get multiple 7/7s, which would be awesome. This card is just pretty good. In the food deck, it makes you a bunch of foods. If you're still in the food deck, you can get a 7/7, which on turn 3 is really hard to overcome. So hopefully you can get some cheap foods. Like later in the game, when you do have 2 food, like on turn 6, 7, 8. A 7/7 is pretty good still. So, and it's only 3 mana, which is awesome. So I rate this pretty highly. I'm giving this like a B minus because you really do want to get the 7/7, but the 3 food tokens is decent consolation, I think. So B minus for Giant Opportunity. Next up we have Gilded Goose. It's for a green. It's a creature bird at rare. It's a 0/2, has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, create a food token. For 1 green, you can tap it to create a food token, and you can also tap it, sacrifice a food, add 1 mana of any color. So this is sort of like a one-shot Birds of Paradise, which is amazing. Birds of Paradise is a great card, but for limited, it's 1 mana for a 0/2 flyer, which blocks their 1/1s all day. But it does ramp you to 3, so if you have something that's staying in your deck like an Oko, it could be really good to ramp. You know, in limited, you don't really want too many mana dorks, but they do help to get your stuff going, and it goes in that green like a ramp deck with Beanstalk Giants and stuff. So I don't know, this could help you. This is more of a constructed card, like a 4 in every green constructed deck, just because Llanowar Elves is rotating, so goes in your constructed decks, like standard decks. But in limited, it's just kind of okay. It does have the ability to make more food tokens for 2 mana, which is solid and gives us extra use when you run out of foods. You have 2 extra mana. This isn't going to be attacking, mostly just going to be back to mana and food. So if you're in the food deck, you know, you could do worse. But you're not like that excited to have this in your deck. Like, if this is your rare, you're like, oh yay. And I don't know if I'd even first pick it. So I'm just gonna give Gilded Goose a C in limited, with a note that it's probably gonna be pretty good in constructed. So you might just want to pick it for value if you're doing a paper draft. Next up, we got the Great Henge. It's 7 green for a legendary artifact and mythic rare. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Tap, add 2 green, you gain 2 life. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So this is the last in the cycle of legendary artifacts that are colored. And this one is probably the best one. I think I mentioned it before, where the green one is going to be the best. So you just need like let's say you have like a 5-power creature. This costs 5 less, so 2 and 2 green. So for 4 mana, you can get this huge artifact. This will just gain you a bunch of life. It ramps you as well, and just gives you awesome value for every other creature you play, and it lets you play more and more creatures, because every time you play a creature, you're gonna be able to draw a card, which is awesome. So this card just has a ton of value. If you can reduce the cost by like 3 or 4, you're getting there. And then if you have like a 5 or 6 power thing, you're really getting there. So this is just great value for the rest of the game. You'll be sad if they destroy it, which it has a huge target on its back, but some decks just can't deal with artifacts. So like a black deck or a blue deck. Sorry, I had to grab some water. So I'm always happy to have this, and this is a slam dunk first pick. Hopefully you're green when this shows up in your pack, but I'd probably pack 3. If this is my rare, I might just consider switching to green because it's so powerful. So this is a slam dunk first pick. I give it an A just because it's so awesome. I see no downside with it other than its face value. It's a 9 mana card, but it never costs 9 mana really. If you have like 1 or 2 creatures out, which has decent power. So yeah, A for Great Henge. I'm really excited to play with this card. Plus in constructed, like, I think this is a really good build around, which it just gives you a ton of advantage throughout the game. So it just gains you life and incidentally. So Yeah, constructed, really gets there. Limited, really good too. So A for the Great Henge. Next up we got Insatiable Appetite. It's for 1 and a green. It's an instant at common. You may sacrifice a food. If you do, target creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. Otherwise, that creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So it's your run-of-the-mill like green pump spell. Better if you're in the food deck, but do you want to be sacking or food? You just give it plus an extra +2/+2. I don't know. It could win you the game, which is cool. Otherwise, it's a bad giant growth, but hey, +3/+3 will win you almost every combat. So this is just kind of like a C-. Like, if you need a combat trick, there you go. But there are adventures with combat tricks, which you probably want to play even more than that. So I'm giving this one a C-. Next up, we got Keeper of Fables. It's for 3 and 2 green. It's a creature cat at uncommon. It's a 4/5. Whenever one or more non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card. This is when one or more, so you can only draw 1 card off of this. Which, you know, it's still good. Drawing 1 card when you get through is solid. Just gives every one of your creatures a good sabotage ability, so they're just going to be having to block all of your stuff unless they are okay with having you draw a card. So this just pumps out advantage. It's just really solid. Plus, it's a 4/5 for 5, which is pretty good. So it's pretty hard to kill in like red decks. So there's that. Yeah, it's just solid. You might even first pick this just because of all the advantage it gives you. So I wouldn't be happy first picking it. I'd give this one a B. And I don't know if in constructed you want to play this. It is 5 mana. So maybe draw you cards, so I don't know about that. But in limited, pretty solid, and I wouldn't be afraid to first pick it. Next up, we have Kenris Transformation. It's 1 and a green for an enchantment aura at uncommon. It says enchant creature. When Kenris Transformation enters the battlefield, draw a card. And enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. So this is like green removal, which, like, if they have a really good creature, you just make it lose its abilities and become a 3/3, which in the right situation can be very clutch. So I would put this in like every green deck, especially since you're in green, you're gonna have bigger creatures than a 3/3 usually. And plus this says draw card on it, so a 2 mana draw card plus make something a 3/3 with no abilities is pretty good. So, you know, this card I'd be happy to have in most green decks. I don't know if you probably have better options in constructed for removal, but in limited, this one can really get through. So I'd probably give this like a C+. I'd rather it just kill the creature, but making it a 3/3 with no abilities, you know, it attacks and blocks, but you probably have better stuff on the battlefield anyway. So yeah, C+ for Kenris Transformation. Next up, we have Lovestruck Beast. It's 2 and a green for creature beast noble at rare. It's an adventure creature. The creature half says Lovestruck Beast can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature, and it's a 5/5. And the adventure is Heart's Desire for a green sorcery adventure. Create a 1/1 white human creature token. So this is basically just a riff on Beauty and the Beast, where the beast can't do anything unless he has a beautiful princess. If you don't have the 1/1, it's just a 5/5 blocker, which is alright. But you ideally want to play the adventure and then later play the creature. And, well, I mean, this is pretty good, but if they can kill your 1/1, then you're kind of SOL. Sorry, I gotta wipe my nose. So, I mean, it's still solid, and it's still a first pick. This is a 3 mana 5/5, which is amazing. Hopefully you can protect your 1/1, or hopefully you have other incidental good 1/1s. You don't want to put bad 1/1s in your deck. Like there's Tome Raider, there's the adventure guy, the 1 mana 1/1 adventure draw card guy, which could be good. But it's just a solid card in limited, and I think it's a B. B to a B. Yeah, I'd give it a B. Because if they kill the 1/1, then it's just, you know, SOL. And by killing that one creature, they nullify 2 creatures, basically. So in constructed, you can play this as well in like a green beatdown deck. Might even be better in constructed, but in limited, it's pretty good. So this one gets a B. Next up, we have Marleaf Rider. It's for 1 and a green. It's a creature elf knight at common. It's a 3/1. Sacrifice a food. Target creature blocks Marleaf Rider this turn if able. So this is another food payoff. It's like a 1 creature lure, which if they only, let's say you have like 3 creatures and they have 3 creatures, then you're forcing one of their creatures to block your guy, your 3/1, which might kill it since it has 3 power, which gets your other guys in. If they have like 1 blocker, then this can take out their blocker and then let you get in with your other guys, which is solid. Don't underestimate this ability because it could matter. And sacking a food is a cost because the food can be used for life later. But if you're making a ton of food, you could do worse than this. It's a 2 mana 3/1, which are solid stats, dies to everything but packs a punch. So if they stumble on their mana, you can get in for 3, 6, 9 damage sometimes. So it could be good. It's just like a C. I mean, you can do a lot better, but you're happy to have one of these, especially in your food decks. Next up, we have Okame Adversary for 3 and a green. It's a creature elf warrior at uncommon. It's a 2/3. This spell costs 2 less to cast if your opponent controls a green permanent. Has Death Touch. Whenever Okame Adversary deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this card is really good if they're playing green because it's a 2 mana 2/3 with Death Touch and draw a card on combat damage. Or it's a 4 mana 2/3 with the same thing, which is still decent. It's a Death Touch creature. Those are always good. I'd be happy to main board this. This is like one of the cycle of color hating or self-color hating cards. And the green one is pretty solid. You get a decent creature with Death Touch. So this one, the shtick is that it puts your opponent into a tough situation where they either throw their creature away to block this or you draw a card. So yeah, you're always getting value when you attack with this, which is good. Or you can just leave it back to block their big threat. So that's solid. This one gets a C+ from me. And if you're playing green, then it even goes up from there. Next up, we have Once in Future. If you're 3 and a green, it's an instant at uncommon. It says return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Put up to 1 other target card from your graveyard on top of your library. Exile Once in Future. Has Adamant. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast the spell, instead return those cards to your hand and exile Once in Future. So this one you really want the Adamant because you want to get 2 cards from your graveyard to your hand. And this one, unlike other like recent green like return stuff to your hands cards, like this one can get any card because it says return target card, not permanent card. The other ones only let you return permanents. So this one lets you get anything, even instants and sorceries, which is awesome. If you don't have the Adamant, this is still okay. You get 1 card from your graveyard to your hand and the other on top of your library, so you will get that one. But if you can Adamant this is just solid card advantage, and you want this in not every green deck. You want this in green decks that are trying to go long and trying to be grindy, probably in like a black-green deck where you want to be recurring creatures. But it's just solid. You might cut it just because it doesn't affect the board at all, and it's 4 mana, so if you think you're not going to have time to cast this, you might want to take it out in like more aggressive matchups. So this one, I believe, gets a C, just because it is solid advantage, but it's not affecting the board. Okay. Next up, we have Once Upon a Time. It's for 1 and a green. It's an instant at rare. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is one of those rares that's like really good and constructed, and in limited it's just kind of like eh. Like you will get a creature or land off it. Digging 5 cards, especially for free. This card says if you haven't done anything else yet, this is just a free card. You can play it without paying its mana cost. So you can literally do it before you even play a land if you're on the draw, which is kind of funny. So that, I mean, if you have it as the first spell of the game, it's really good, and then otherwise it's just decent. I would pay 2 mana for this effect, but it's not very exciting otherwise. This is just a really good constructed card, smooths out your draws and everything. Limited, you can find a land with it, make sure you hit your land drops, which is solid. But it's just, I don't know if I would first pick this unless you're going for value, like in a paper draft, or you're on an arena, you want to have this for your constructed decks. But it's just like, it's decent. It's not really a first pick, so this one you want in your deck, but you don't want to first pick it. So I would give a C to Once Upon a Time, which kind of hurts my soul because it is so good and constructed. So C for Once Upon a Time. Next up we have Outmuscle for 3 and a green. It's a sorcery at common. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then it fights target creature you don't control. Adamant. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast the spell, the creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. So ideally you will get Adamant on this and then swing in with an indestructible creature after your creature already killed something. So this is just a really solid green removal spell. Definitely the best green removal spell in the set. This one you want in all your green decks, and hopefully your heavier green so you can get the Adamant. But even if you don't get the Adamant, your creature gets permanently larger and you take out one of their creatures. Hopefully their creature doesn't have Death Touch, because remember, Death Touch says that whenever the creature deals damage. So be careful with that. But if your creature's indestructible because of this spell, you don't have to worry about it, because it can't die either way. So it's solid. I would put it in heavy green deck, probably give it a B-. Next up we have Questing Beast for 2 and 2 green. It's a legendary creature beast at Mythic Rare. It's a 4/4. It has a lot of abilities. It has Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste. Questing Beast can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. And whenever Questing Beast deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls. So wow, there's a lot to unpack. Basically, the entire thing boils down to this is a solid creature it's pushed for constructed. In limited, this is like keyword soup, and part of some of its abilities never matter, like damage being prevented never really matters in limited, and combat damage to a planeswalker never really matters unless you're unlucky enough to have an opponent that has a planeswalker. So this could be good in those matchups where your Mythic Rare can take out their Mythic Rare, which would be pretty good. But it's just solid stats. It has a million abilities: Vigilance, Death Touch, and Haste. It can attack right away, kills anything it gets into combat with, and is even still up to block. Vigilance and Death Touch is pretty nasty, and can't be chump blocked because it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So you will trade with this. This will get through for some damage because it has Death Touch, but if I was your opponent, I would always be blocking this with a 4 power creature, hopefully. So this is just a really solid creature. It's nothing like too special in limited. Like it is beatable. So it's just a 4-mana 4/4. So this is kind of like a B-. I would first pick it just because of the value and how good it is in constructed. In constructed, this is solid and deals with all the planeswalker shenanigans that are going on in standard. So that's good. But yeah, this is like a B minus, and I'd be happy to first pick it, but just, it's probably for value for constructed. Next up, we have Return of the Wild Speaker for 4 and a green. It's an instant at rare. Choose one, draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. So this really puts you in that red-green non-human deck. I think with this, you really want to be drawing like 4 or 5 cards for your 5 mana. But given your non-human creatures, if you've gone wide with non-human tokens, this can just end the game, really. I have played a game of Limited with this where it just did stone nothing because I had no non-humans. Had no non-human creatures. I just had humans with Adventure. This was really bad in my Limited green-white Adventure deck. But if you're in the non-human like green-red deck, this can really do well for you. If you have something like Beanstalk Giant, this will just draw you a million cards because that card's like a 7/7 at base value. So hopefully, if you have the right combination of creatures that are that are sufficiently large and they're not human, this will draw you a bunch of cards. So hopefully, you're drawing cards or winning the game with the +3/+3. Together, that's pretty solid. So if you're in the right deck, it's sort of a build around. So I'll give it a B. If you're really getting there with non-humans and they're all big, I'd bump it up to a B plus for sure. So B to B plus for Return of the Wild Speaker. Next up we have Return to Nature. It's for 1 and a green. It's an instant at common. Choose one. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. So this is really good hate against like the legendary artifacts. If your opponent's lucky enough to get one of those, this can deal with it for 2 mana at instant speed, which is awesome. In this format, I might even main deck it because there's some good artifacts out there. There's annoying enchantments like Trapped in the Tower and stuff like that. So and Charm Sleep. This can get you out of jams. Just can randomly get rid of a card in their graveyard if they aren't playing any enchantments or artifacts, which against black decks could matter. But yeah, I would main deck this. I like main decking like enchantment and artifact hate for sure. Sometimes in limited, especially if you need another playable. But this, this is solid. I'd give it like a C minus, and you'd look to cut it, but hopefully you can main deck it, and hopefully it's not a dead card in your hand. But it could give you out of jams. So C minus for Return to Nature. Next up we have Rosethorn Acolyte for 2 and a green. Creature, elf, druid at common. It's an adventure creature. And the creature half is a 2/3 that taps to add 1 mana of any color. And the adventure half is Seasonal Ritual for a green. Sorcery adventure, add 1 mana of any color. So this is funny because it's sort of like a overplayed like modern card called Manamorphose, and I've joked that this one is basically bad Amorphose because it gives you 1 color of, or it gives you 1 of any color, but then the card that it draws you is a 2/3 for 3. So this sort of does, as you play the ritual, it does sort of draw you a card. It's a 2/3 that adds a mana of any color, which is okay. This goes in the green ramp decks. And it could fix your mana, but it's pretty marginal whenever that would matter. I'd probably usually just cast the creature half and be, fairly happy about it. 2/3 is not great stats for 3 mana, but hey, it's a blocker, and hey, it adds mana, so that's not bad. Plus, it's a non-human when that matters, so I don't think you would play this in Constructed because 3 mana for your mana dork, you really want to be paying 1 or 2 mana for your mana dork, so not in Constructed, but in Limited, it's a solid, it's a solid creature. So I'd just give a C to Rosethorn Acolyte. Next up, we have Rosethorn Halberd for a green. It's an artifact equipment at common. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to target non-human creature you control. Equip creature gets +2/+1. Equip 5. So this one you're basically never re-equipping, Hopefully you're going to put it on a big green creature that's evasive, or a big creature that can fly or whatever. Because a pretty good boost for 1 mana. It's +2/+1. So that kind of sticks around. For 1 mana, that's pretty good. +2/+1, just, and then later you can, if you have nothing else to do with your mana, you can equip it for 5, which feels horrible, but hey, it'll help you win combats. This one doesn't have flash, which stinks, like Embercleave, but so they'll always see the trick coming. But it makes your creature sufficiently larger for just 1 mana. It doesn't ask much of you. So this one I think is just a C, and you want it in your non-human decks. If you have a bunch of humans, it doesn't go in. I'd probably cut it. So I'd just give it a C, especially in the non-human deck. Next up, we got Spore Cap Spider for 2 and a green. It's a creature spider at common, has reach, and it's a 1/5. So it's a reaching 5 toughness creature, which is like impossible for your flyers to get through. This thing blocks flyers like really well. You basically never want to attack with it because it's just so good defensively. I'm pretty high on this card, which it doesn't look like much, but 5 toughness and 1 power can block like every fairy ever. So they just can't attack anymore because you have a 1/5 blocker, which can block flying creatures. They have to waste removal on this, which is awesome. So this is just a solid card, and I'd probably give it a C+. You want one in every one of your green decks. Plus it's a non-human for when that matters. So it's just solid. 3 mana and you get 1/5 reach. I mean, what more can you want from your reach creature? Yeah, I like this better than like the 2/3 guys, because those die to flyers, but this one just blocks forever, so they have to waste removal on it. So yeah, it's just like a C+. Next up, we got Sir Farron the Hengehammer. For green, it's a legendary creature, human knight at uncommon. It's a 2/2, and whenever Sir Farron the Hengehammer attacks, another target attacking creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Sir Farron's power. So this is sort of like that card in, I think it was Ravnica Allegiance. It was basically the same card except it had Riot for 4 mana. This is only 2 mana, and it makes one of your other attackers pretty big. Plus, if you can pump this at all before it attacks, if this already attacked and you use a pump spell on it, it doesn't work that way. It already gave the bonus. So you want to pump this and then attack. So if you can pump this at all, maybe with the, oh well, it's a human, so never mind. But if you can pump this at all, makes your other dude enormous, which is awesome. Just basically doubles all your pump spells. +X/+X, not even just power, also toughness. That's good. This will just die in combat, but you got your punch through, which is solid. And they do need to kill this, or it just takes over the game. So this one is like a B-. You do want it in your green decks. Unfortunately, it's a human, so it doesn't go in your non-human deck. But you might even still just play this in your non-human deck, just because it's pretty good value. So B- for Sir Farron, and who knows, maybe could even make a wave in constructed in some kind of gruel like aggressive deck. So probably not, but it could happen. So B-, Sir Farron. Next up, we got Tall as a Beanstalk. It's 3 and a green for an enchantment aura at common. Enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3, has reach, and is a giant in addition to its other types. So this causes your creature to dodge the Realm Cloak Giant, since it makes it as a giant, which is such marginal upside that it doesn't really matter, but hey, that's what that is. +3/+3 is a lot, plus reach. So if in your green deck you have very little flying defense, this can get you there. But unfortunately, it's an aura, which has the downside of, if they kill your creature, you just got 2 for 1, which feels awful. But if they can't kill your creature, then this just gets you there. So +3/+3 is huge. So yeah, this one just gets a C, and you're probably gonna look to cut this more often than not, unless you want to make big creatures. So in your green deck, hopefully you already have big creatures. but this one can make a little creature more relevant, so that's always pretty good. So I think C for Tall as a Beanstalk. Next up, we got Trail of Crumbs. It's 1 and a green for an enchantment at uncommon. Trail of Crumbs enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you stack a food, you may pay 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So it makes a food token for you, which is awesome. And then it gives your food that you stack an additional upside, which the upside is actually real. One time I had Feasting Troll King and I returned it from the graveyard stacking 3 foods, and then I paid 3 mana and I basically drew 3 cards. So this card can really get you there. Whenever you stack a food, you just pay 1 extra mana and you get a card off of stacking a food, which is awesome. So this card can really get there, especially in the food deck. Outside the food deck, it makes 1 food token and you can has the rest of the upside for the 1 token, which isn't great, but there's a lot of just incidental food making in green and like black that, I mean, it still might even just be worth playing. It's a solid little enchantment. It doesn't ask much for you. It's just 2 mana, and food is just in the set is just really powerful. So it's just really good. So this one I give a B to, because I do want it in every food deck, because it's just so solid and gives you extra upside for stacking your foods, which you want to do anyway. So B for Trail of Crumbs. Maybe I'm in a little high on it, but I just really like how it plays. It doesn't look like much, but it just draws you extra cards, which is just great. Next up, we got Twinville Treefolk, 5 and a green for a creature Treefolk Druid at common. It's an adventure creature. The creature half is just a vanilla 6/5 and for 6, and the adventure half is Oaken Boon for 3 and a green. It's a sorcery adventure. Put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. So this is actually like 2 okay cards stapled together. I guess I'd pay 4 mana for 2 1/1 counters. Not too happy about that, but hey, it makes one of your creatures huge, which in green decks you always want to do. And then later you get a pretty big creature, so this is a pretty good threat. You can ramp into it. It's not a bad creature. Nowhere you don't want to play this in constructed, but in limited this is just a solid card to ramp into. 6/5 for 6 is decent stats, so plus it has upside, so hey, this is decent. I'd give it a C, and you'll probably play 1 of these in your limited decks. Next up, we got Wicked Wolf for 2 and 2 green. It's a creature wolf at rare. It's a 3/3. When Wicked Wolf enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control, and then sacrifice a food, put a 1/1 counter on Wicked Wolf. It gains indestructible until end of turn, and tap it. So this thing just comes in and eats your food and kills anything on the other side of the battlefield. So it's kind of like a 4 mana 4/4 if you have a food, which this is a solid food payoff, I would say. So note that it says tap it at the end of the sentence. Tapping it is not part of the cost, so if it's already tapped, you can still use it. So you can just give it a +1/+1 counter and indestructible, even if it's tapped already. So this is really resilient against like any removal, except like Trapped in the Tower, but hey, that's really good. So just kill something and it's a body, which is always good. It's sort of like lurking or Ravenous Chupacabra, and that it's a creature that kills something. So this is really solid in a green deck. I would first pick this and try to be in the food deck, but if you're in green, you're just gonna have incidental food anyway. So I'd put it in any green deck really. So this one I'd give it a A- just because it's solid. It's a removal on a creature, which is really good, and it's resilient at that. So A- for Wicked Wolf. Next up, we got Wildborn Preserver. It's for 1 and a green. It's a creature elf archer at rare. It's a 2/2. Has flash. Has reach. Whenever another non-human creature enters the battlefield under your control, You may pay X. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on Wildborn Preserver. This one is a bomb. Like, I would really hope to open this in a draft and then be in the non-human deck. Best non-human payoff for sure. It just gets huge. Like, let's say it's turn 5 or whatever, and you top deck this. You flash it in on their turn. Then at your turn, you play like a non-human that costs 4 or whatever. You pay 2 or 3 extra mana. This becomes a 4/4 or a 5/5, and your initial investment was just 2 mana. So this card really gets there. I'm really high on it. I'll give it an A. It just gets huge. They have to deal with it, or it'll just hit them in the face. Has reach, which is funny because you're just going to be attacking with this, but on the turn you play it, you can block their flyer, which they'll never see coming in a green deck. So I don't know. It's just really good. I'm really high on it. In constructed, this gets there too. You can play it in your green stompy decks, which is awesome. So just good and constructed, good and limited. It's just really solid. So I give it an A. I always want to open it. So A for Wildborn Preserver. Next up, we got Wildwood Tracker. It's for a green. It's a creature elf warrior at common. It's a 1/1. Whenever Wildwood Tracker attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, Wildwood Tracker gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This is a non-human payoff that's really easy to turn on. You just have to have one other non-human creature, and it's a 1-mana 2/2, which, you know, it's solid. You'll play it in your green decks, but you'll also cut it, you know, pretty quickly because it's not very impactful. It's just like a 2/2. So you're happy to have it in like an aggressive green-red, like non-human deck, but otherwise you might cut it. So it's like a C. Next up, we got Wolf's Quarry. It's for 4 and 2 green. It's a sorcery at common. Create 3 1/1 green boar creature tokens with, when this creature dies, create a food token. So a lot of people say this might be the worst card in the set, but I give it the benefit of a doubt because food is so powerful, and sometimes when you attack him with the little boar, they don't want to even block it because they don't want to give you the food token, which will gain you life or give you whatever other values. So it is overcosted, I would say. I would want this at like 3, no, well, 3 ideally. It'd be like a Mythicker. But not Mythicker, it'd be a rare. At like 4 mana, it would be great, and at 5 mana, it'd be okay. 6 mana, it's really hard to put this in your deck. So at 6 mana, you really want to be putting on a big fatty or doing something really impactful. Instead, you get 3 1/1s, which chump block really well since they give you value when they die. But yeah, I mean, this one, I guess I'm off it. It is pretty bad. This is like a D- to a D. I said I'm higher on it, but I'll probably never put this in my deck. So I'd give it like a D. Because you could be in the food deck and hey, it gives you food, so there you go. So it's like a D. Next up, last card is Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig. For 3 green, it's a legendary creature, giant noble at rare. It's a 0/0, but when Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig enters the battlefield with 4 1/1 counters on it. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. Then if that creature's power is greater than Yorvo's power, put another 1/1 counter on Yorvo. So the second half of the big brick of text is kind of irrelevant. You're probably not going to play too much stuff that's bigger than a 4/4, like by turn 4. But hey, it's upside. And you really want to be heavy green if you play this. 3 green is asking a lot in the 2-color deck. You could get lucky and get 3 forests, but it's kind of hard. But still, by turn like 5, 6, when you have 3 green, this is still solid. It's 3 mana for a 4/4. Plus, maybe you can play another green creature, which will pump it up to a 5/5. So this thing just gets really big, and they have to block it or they just die. So it's solid. I would first pick it and try to be mono green for for a bit, but that's kind of a trap. But yeah, if I pick this first, I'd probably try to be mono green. But But in constructed, you could probably build a mono green deck where this is a solid 3-drop too. So it attacks and blocks, gets bigger, which is solid. So for 3 mana, you get a 4/4. That's solid. So I just give like I give this like a B minus. I'm not terribly excited about it because it doesn't have trample. Can't get trample in an easy way without other cards. So yeah, it's just a B minus. So it's solid. So that is the end of all the green cards in Throne of Eldraine. Next up, I'm going to be looking at the multicolored and artifact and land cards. So keep a heads up for that. I really like green in this set. I think that green is a really solid color to be, especially like monocolor, just because it has all the biggest creatures and it seems like a lot of the synergies center around green. Like food is a really strong one, and then also adventure is there too. So, and it has good animate stuff. So it's just a solid card to be in, or color to be in. So I'm happy to be green in any limited deck, I think. So that's the end of it. And like I said, multicolored and artifact and land are next. I'm not going to cover the Planeswalker decks or Brawl decks. You can look through those yourself, but I'm just focusing on limited. So there's that. Hopefully you guys liked it, and I'll see you next time.